This is a simple passage, short in length, but great in significance that we've just heard proclaimed from St. Mark's Gospel. This is the familiar account of the calming of the storm at sea. If you were to look at the Sea of Galilee, an inland body of fresh water at the base of the slope of Mount Arbel on the west, and at the foot of the Golan Heights in the east, with the Jordan River entering in the north and exiting from it in the south, you might think of Lake Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire or Webster Lake in central Massachusetts. Indeed, this is not the open ocean. It's only 13 miles long and 7 miles wide. And so one might not usually expect that such a scene as that described in this passage could ever occur there, because more often than not, it is a rather calm lake, as would be expected. Yet, as I personally have seen, when an east wind from Syria blows down the Golan Heights, this usually very tranquil lake of Tiberias, as it is also known, can become like the water in a washing machine with its agitator on top speed. This, then, is what is being recalled in today's passage. And on top of that, it happened at night. And it happened after a long day of ministries and preaching and healing on the other side of the lake. That is, on the opposite side from home base for Jesus and his disciples in Capernaum on the sea's western shore. So with perhaps less than half the 7 miles covered already, and so at least 7 more to go, and worse, in the pitch dark of night, this band of 12 tired disciples, 4 of whom were former fishermen on this very body of water, along with their exhausted and now sleeping rabbi, get caught in a very terrible squall. When the water in the boat is at least ankle deep or more, they get frightened enough to wake their sleeping teacher and out of desperation beg for his help. And with an amazingly simple command, the wind and the sea obey Jesus. And so that question posed to Job in our first reading is answered. Who can contain the sea? No mere mortal, only the one who created it. And so the disciples' question as to who this might really be is also answered if they're ready to accept that answer. Indeed, Jesus is the power behind the universe, come among us in human form. He is the mind behind the design of all things, now enfleshed and living among us. This is why Jesus asks them a question in turn. Why are you afraid? Not why were you afraid, as the cause of their immediate fear, the howling wind and the raging sea, have now returned to their original tranquility. But rather, why are you afraid? Indeed, afraid in the sense of overawed even still, even though the peril is obviously over. Because without saying it explicitly, the disciples know the answer to that question, as they cannot help but sense in whose company they have been sailing, as is proved by their faithful recollection of this quite memorable event, and thus its eventual inclusion in the written Gospels. They sense they are truly in the presence of the one who made the universe and holds it in existence. And so, not surprisingly, they rightly have gone from being frightened by nature's potentially lethal forces to being completely awestruck at nature's creator's power. Truly, in the presence of Jesus, there is no need to be in terror, because as much as he is the God who commands the universe, he is at the same time the God who in mercy humbly came among us to redeem us and to save us. We are in the presence of Jesus sacramentally, and we should be in awe at that. But as our second reading reminds us, we don't know Jesus in the flesh, and in that sense, we won't ever be in the boat with Jesus. But we are ever in the same boat in some sense as his disciples, and that there is always much in our own lives, as in theirs, that can easily frighten us, and terribly so. Maybe it's seeing a registered letter in our mail from a law firm, apologies to lawyers, or an identity thief's possession of all our passwords, a knock on our door by the state police, an unexpected call at 3 a.m., or waiting in the doctor's office to receive news of diagnostic tests. All of these situations, to name but a few, can cause us to be very anxious and prompt us to fear in some sense that we too might be on the verge of perishing. And so prayerfully in our own way, we each call out, "Lord, wake up, come to my rescue." But then we too are asked to remember who Jesus has revealed himself to be, the God of the universe, whose miraculous and mighty works are crowned ultimately by his resurrection, proving that he has power even over death itself. So then we should ask, what in the world, or even beyond it, do we really have to fear? The only true peril we face then would be to jeopardize our own hope of eternal life by ever allowing the inevitable but passing storms and stresses that come to us in this life to cause us to ever doubt the truth of Christ's person and thus lose faith in his plan and his power to save us.